Hello fellow brawlers, I'm KairosTime and it is time for version 15 of the competitive tier list. Guys, I really appreciate your patience and how long it's been since the last tier list. I know you guys have been begging for this and wanting it as soon as possible. I wanted to make sure that this was as accurate as possible, and we had to add 2 new brawlers and two new modes, and have had to also work on integrating the stats from Brawl Stats. It's a lot of stuff that we wanted to do for this tier list. And the stats that we're going to be seeing are coming all from brawlstats.com. Now, they actually sent them to me. You're definitely going to want to check out that site if you haven't already. With the addition of these 2 new modes, Takedown and Lone Star, I'm splitting the tier list into 2 separate videos, okay? The solo mode tier list, which is this video, and that's going to include both showdowns. It's also going to include Lone Star and Takedown. Now, the stats we're going to be showing you in this video are actually the win rates for each of the brawlers. I'm not showing you all of the use rates. The use rates are a little bit more confusing and complex. I'm going to mention them when they're important, but what you need to know is that the combination of the use rates and the win rates are what really matters, and the discussion of the collaborators to use those rates to really determine the best placements for every single brawler. I'm really confident this is the best and most accurate tier list we've ever come out with, so I'm really excited for it. Now, with the addition of the 2 new modes, I'm splitting the tier list into 2 separate videos. This video is the solo mode tier list, which will include both showdowns, even though Duo Showdown is not a solo mode, as well as Takedown and Lone Star. Now, in a future video, which you're going to want to subscribe and turn the notification bell on for, we are going to be covering all the changes that are taking place for the 3v3 modes. Now, before we move on, I wanted to give a huge thank you to the tier list collaborators that really helped a lot in making this video. The links to their social media are in the description of this video, and seriously guys, we worked hard to make this the best tier list ever. Like in the history of Brawl Stars. It's quality stuff right here. Now let's actually jump into the Takedown tier list. Starting off, we have Bull as the golden S tier brawler with a pick rate that is 7 times higher than the normal or the average brawler with a 66% win rate. That's insane. Bull deals a ton of damage with his berserker star power. He's even able to deal more. I mean, he's just insane. He can use his super to get to the boss or run away from the boss in dangerous situations. And because he's a tankier brawler, he can gather power-ups with less risk. And that means he's going to waste less time than other brawlers would. Currently, a lot of the takedown maps have a lot of walls, which allows close-range brawlers like Bull to really thrive. Colt is also in the S tier. And I should mention that his win rates are like almost identical to Bull's. That high of a win rate, 66% with such a high use rate, it's absolutely insane, guys. That almost never happens. And for both Colt and Bull to be at the top, it was hard to pick which one of the 2 are going to be the best, or, you know, our golden S tier brawler. Colt has really high DPS, and he's able to attack the boss from a longer distance away. And then also his slick boots help him to, you know, get close to the boss, wasting less time running, which is what a lot of brawlers tend to do. Now let's actually jump into the A tier, starting off with Pam, who actually technically has the 2nd highest win rate in Takedown at 67.6%, but her pick rate is much lower than both Colts and Bull's, which is why she's in the A tier. I always say Bull or Bo instead of Bull. It's confusing. I don't know why. Now, she has a really high DPS when she's up close to the bot, and of course, her turret can help keep her alive without having to wait to heal like other brawlers have to do if they get hurt. Now, 8-Bit actually has the highest win rate in Takedown at 69.3% and has a slightly less than average use rate. I should note that these win rates are for the competitive meta, which is above 700 trophies, and above 700 trophies, most players actually ignore each other and don't go for kills because honestly, that's the best way to win. And in that condition, where he's not a target, 8-Bit does incredibly well. Also in the A tier, we have Daryl, who's kind of like a lesser version of Bull. He has respectable DPS, and his super allows him to catch up to the bot. He's super solid. Rico is also kind of like a lesser version of Colt. He deals less damage in general and also has less health, but with his Robo Retreat star power, he actually is able to like survive pretty well in a lot of situations. Now, Bo has a lower win rate than the other A tier brawlers, but he's actually still pretty good if you play him well and focusing on damaging the boss. Dynamite, honestly, is amazingly good. I tried to convince the tier list collaborators to put him in the S tier. Didn't happen. That's right. I put my feedback in there. He has a super high win rate of 65.7% and a slightly above average pick rate. The fact that he can deal so much damage from behind cover is just incredible. Ultimately, we decided to put him in the A tier because he is a little bit more map dependent than some of the other brawlers. Now, Brock is also in the A tier with a win rate of 55.4%, and his range, damage, and burst allows him to deal damage from a long distance away from the bot. and keep himself pretty safe. Incendiary, by the way, is a recommended star power for Brock and Takedown. Rosa can also do pretty well if she's played right. She's in the A tier. If she can avoid being targeted by enemy players, then she can have the consistent DPS that she needs to do pretty well in Takedown. Now let's talk about the B tier brawlers. Shelly is kind of like a lesser version of Daryl, who's kind of like a lesser version of Bull from this mode. Obviously, you guys get the idea. It's not exactly, but you get it. Now, she's best on close range maps where she doesn't have to worry about those long range brawlers, and she does a pretty good job at countering those tanks. El Primo's another niche brawler who's only good on these close range maps. It's important for him to focus on dodging shots and dealing damage to the boss than to get power cubes and become an easy target. That's one problem that I see a lot of people do in Takedown, is they focus on getting power cubes, then they just become targeted instead of the boss, and they waste their time. Spike, also in the B tier, he can be used especially if he's focusing on damaging the boss without becoming like a prime aggravator of other brawlers, because he can actually still attack the boss, and then his leftover spikes can burst out and still do damage to hit enemies without becoming an enemy themselves. Like, they're not going to target him because he's specifically attacking them. Once his super is charged, he can keep enemy brawlers away from the boss. Barley is kind of like a lesser version of Dynamite in this mode. He doesn't have as much survivability or total damage, but on the right map, he can do very well. Leon, also in the B tier, definitely requires some skill to pull off with low win rates, but he can be played if you focus on killing the boss, not enemy players, but focus on killing that boss and surviving after you've unloaded all of your shots and you're particularly vulnerable as Leon. Piper, also in the B tier. She has a very low win rate, but she has some viability on very open maps with her snappy sniping star power. I am stumbling through this, if you guys haven't noticed. And now that we have covered each individual brawler, here is the Takedown tier list. Every brawler that is not on this image has a win rate below 42% and is simply not good above 700 trophies on any particular map, really. Likely isn't even good in non-competitive meta either. Two of the brawlers you may be curious to know about are Crow and Jesse, who both have a win rate of an incredibly low win rate of 31%. Even below 700 trophies, they both have a very low win rate, around 40%. And of course, just because I think it's funny, Mortis has a 2.9% win rate, which means that when Mortis is played over 700 trophies, he gets within the top 5 2.9% of the time. Tried it once on a live stream. It did not go very well. Up next, the Lone Star tier list. Starting off is Sandy as the golden S tier brawler for Lone Star with a 66.4% win rate and a slightly below average pick rate, which is honestly just because he's a new legendary brawler and not as many people have him. If more people had him, his pick rate would be insanely high. Now, Sandy has incredible burst potential and can kill more than one brawler at a time with his attacks. I've done it multiple times. His super helps him ambush or evade enemies, and his Rude Sands star power helps him steal kills, and prevent players from healing even from a far distance away. I pushed Sandy to 700 trophies on the first day he was out in Lone Star, and it was ridiculously easy. I could hardly believe it. Now, Leon is also in the S tier. He has played almost 5 times more than the average brawler, and he boasts a super high win rate of 65.6%, which is absolutely unheard of, except for earlier in this video, for such a high use rate. Now, his invisibility allows for unexpected ambushes followed by high burst damage, and, you know, really few brawlers that are good in this mode can actually survive that. And that helps him recharge his super and get ready for another assassination. Piper, also in the S tier. She's played almost 3 times more than the average brawler and has an okay win rate. Even though other brawlers have higher win rates though, she has insane potential and can absolutely dominate a match if you're skilled with her, especially if you can hit your shots with snappy sniping. Now, Gene is also in the S tier. He has the second highest win rate in Lone Star, which justifies this S tier position despite only having a slightly above average use rate. He can chip players from a distance and he has insane range. Plus, his Spirit Slap star power adds so much power to every single attack. Next up, we have brawlers in the A tier. Starting off, we have Brock, who boasts an impressive 57.2% win rate, where he's able to deal a lot of burst damage up close and even from a safe distance if you can, you know, actually hit your targets. It helps that he can also reshape the map with his super, clearing things out, making the map more favorable for his long range. Now, Mortis in the A tier is actually played just as much as Leon is, but his win rate is less at 59.5%, which is still actually very impressive. He's amazing at juking, and he is great at approaching those long-range brawlers, especially with his coiled snake star power. Now, he does struggle against some of those close-range brawlers, but, you know, that doesn't happen as much in Lone Star. Shelly is also in the A tier. She does a lot better than I thought that she would, with an impressive win rate of 58.6% and being played more than any other brawler in the game mode. Now, with that said, this is mostly due to the fact that she's very good on really bushy maps like Island Invasion. Another reason why she does well is because she's such a good counter to these close range brawlers that are really popular like Leon and Mortis. Bo's also in the A tier. He fares pretty well with an average use rate and a win rate of 54.7%. He has the range to keep himself safe, and his bombs can help with controlling important parts of the map. And of course, despite having a low amount of HP, Crow actually does it pretty well in Lone Star as well. He is very prone to getting his kills stolen from other brawlers, but he also does a really great job at stealing other players' kills to make up for it. Daryl is also in the A tier. He is the least used assassin brawler in Lone Star, but he does still have some decent survivability, and he's great at closing the gap between him and enemy brawlers with his super. Onto the B tier brawlers for Lone Star. Carl, B tier, actually has the highest win rate out of all the brawlers for Lone Star, but he was only played 0.7% of the time. That's incredibly low. That's above 700 trophies, and that would suggest that that win rate is highly inflated due to like a few brawlers or players that are like really good at playing Carl in Lone Star. I will say that Carl does have some niche viability though, especially against squishy brawlers, and if you're good at gradually chipping enemy brawlers down from a distance, then he can do really well. Rosa can also do well in Lone Star, especially on those bushy maps and maps with lots of walls. BB boasts a very high win rate, but also a very low use rate, which suggests she's excellent on certain maps where melee brawlers can stand a chance. Bull actually has the lowest win rate out of all of the Lone Star tier list brawlers, but we could not ignore the fact that he's just so good on Island Invasion, which does justify that B tier position as a niche brawler. Rico's also in the B tier. He's pretty squishy, but his long range DPS can help him rack up the kills, especially on maps like Hot Maze, where he can bounce around shots, you know, around the walls and things like that. And now that we have covered this is the Lone Star tier list. Once again, if you do not see a brawler here, it's because we decided that they are just not competitive for Lone Star. The one brawler I might mention is actually Nita, who might be a decent brawler below 700 trophies, you know, maybe like below even 600 or 500 trophies. But aside from that, I think this is really solid. And now, guys, we have the solo showdown tier list. Now, I'm actually gonna let you screenshot this one. That we're gonna continue with the tier list how it normally happens, where we're gonna discuss the brawlers as they change between the tiers since the last tier list video. Starting off, we have 8-Bit as the golden S tier brawler. He is replacing Shelly's spot. There's a lot of good reasons for this, okay? He has got great range, high DPS, and an extra life. That star power is absolutely insane in a mode where staying alive is important. Even after it got nerfed, he's still an incredibly strong brawler. Sandy's also being added into the S tier with one of the most devastating supers in the game. Sandy is absolutely broken. I can't believe that he hasn't been touched yet. He's so good. He benefits from the ability to control the brawlers, you know, in a large area because of his super, and he can use that to then ambush targets, run from tricky situations, just keep them continually taking damage. With his rude sandstar power, you get the idea. He's insane. Now let's talk about the A tier changes, starting with Shelly. Once again, moving from the golden S tier down to the A tier. Shelly has received 2 nerfs to her star powered Band-Aid since the last tier list, and she is no longer the dominant brawler in the mode like she used to be. Still, she's okay, you know, she's good. Band-Aid is still strong, just not game breaking. Pam's moving from the S tier down to the A tier. Despite a buff to her attack, she just doesn't do as well as the other S tier brawlers. Still an incredible option, especially on the right map, but no longer S tier because we have 8-Bit and Sandy, who are just insane. Bo is moving from the S tier down to the A tier. Now, despite his range and damage, the fact that Bo needs to strafe to land his shots better, that makes him less viable than the other S tier brawlers. Once again, Sandy, 8-Bit, they're so good. Crow is moving from the S tier into the A tier. With 8-Bit and Sandy both being very difficult counters to Crow, he's just less viable now than he used to be when, you know, before they were in the mode. Rosa is moving from the non-ranked position all the way up into the A tier. She received 2 buffs to her health, and Rosa now has greater means of survivability in the mode, especially on the right map. Now let's talk about the brawlers moving to the B tier, starting off with Barley, moving from A to B. Many of the current maps cater to those long-range brawlers. They're open or they have lots of grass. Now there are a few maps like Stormy Plains and Rock Wall Brawl that do benefit for throwers, but definitely not enough to justify Barley in the A tier. And honestly, Dynamite is in the exact same boat, going down to the B tier for the same exact reasons. However, Tick is moving from the non-ranked position up into the B tier, and he used to be terrible in Showdown because he has so low health, but he actually now has some viability competitively due to the fact that he has exceptional range and a larger attack. Now, he can solo up on some of those thrower maps as well as some long-range maps because he has such a long range. Bull is also moving from the non-ranked tier into the B tier. With the amount of maps that cater to tanks and the fact that we've now seen how solid his shield star power can be, Bull now has some viability on these grassy maps, which allows him into the B tier. Up next, guys, we have the Duo Showdown tier list. And here it is. You can grab that screenshot really fast. And now we're moving on. 8-Bit added to the S tier, replacing Jean as the golden S tier brawler. Once again, with extra life, 8-Bit is so good in Showdown, and in duos, he's even better because of the additional damage that comes from his turret. He has the highest win rate out of all the brawlers, and he's super good on Duo Showdown. A reminder for the win rates for Duo Showdown: normally the Showdown win rate should be like 50% because, you know, 5 win, 5 lose, but in Duo Showdown, 4 win, 6 lose, which means that the average win rate is actually closer to 40% than 50%. So that 50% win rate is actually incredible. Now, Sandy's also being added to the S tier as well. There's just, I mean, Sandy, absolutely broken. His super is absolutely game-changing. The fact that your duo partner also gets the benefit from the invisibility for 12 seconds, it's just insane. Tick is moving from non-ranked all the way up into the S tier. That is the biggest jump you can have. Previously, Tick lacked in his ability to kind of keep enemies pushed back, but now that his shots have, you know, they got buffed, the blast radius increased, he just offers incredible control, especially when you have a teammate to cover his weakness of being up close to Tick. Now, Piper's moving from the A tier up into the S tier. Since the last tier list, Piper's received a new star power, Snappy Sniping, and despite it being nerfed since its original release, her increased reload means a lot less vulnerability. She's definitely a really good ally to have in this mode, and she currently has the highest use rate out of all brawlers over 700 trophies in Duo Showdown, where she's being played 5 times more than the average brawler, which is proof that she's crazy good for the mode. Now let's talk about the A tier brawlers. Leon is moving from the S tier into the A tier. In Duo Showdown, the aim is really to try and maintain that long range distance, especially because, you know, we got Piper and these long range 8-bit brawlers. You get the idea. He's still solid, just don't feel like he deserves the S tier position anymore. Crow's moving down from the S tier into the A tier as well. Very similar situation to before, right? 8-bit, Sandy, Piper. He just kind of struggles more now than he used to before, although he is still solid. Now let's talk about B tier brawlers. Shelly is moving from the S tier down into the B tier. This is all because of the nerfs to her Band-Aid star power. I don't feel like I need to say any more than that. She's a lot more balanced now. Penny is moving from the A tier into the B tier. Her turret's just not enough to justify her A tier status, especially because she normally will get 1 or maybe even 2 attacks or 2 turrets in for the entire Duo Showdown match. Her main attack just doesn't provide enough DPS to compete against most of the S tier brawlers who have really high burst potential, as you're seeing in this meta. Rose is moving from the A tier down to the B tier for similar reasons to Shelly. She just, her lack of range just makes her struggle a little bit. And that is the solo tier list. Once again, in a future video coming very soon, I will be going over the 3v3 modes, so make sure you guys subscribe, turn on that notification bell. I know you guys watch YouTube videos, you get it, you don't want to miss it. I would love to hear your thoughts on this tier list, so please let me know in the comment section below. And of course, I wanted to give a huge thank you once again to brawlstats.com and the tier list collaborators for making this video possible. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and for now, this is KairosTime ticking by, and we will see you in Brawl Stars.